The morning sun filtered through the Venetian blinds of Rosie's diner, casting gentle stripes across the checkered floor. Margaret had worked at this place for 37 years, ever since her husband passed and left her with 2 young children to raise. Now those children were grown with families of their own, but Margaret still came in every morning at 6, tied her apron strings with practiced fingers, and filled coffee cups with a smile that came from somewhere deep and genuine. She moved a little slower now, her silver hair pulled back in the same simple bun she'd worn for decades. Her hands, weathered and spotted with age, still held the coffee pot steady. She knew every regular by name, remembered how they took their coffee, and asked about their grandchildren with authentic interest that made people linger a little longer over their breakfast. This particular Saturday morning started like most others. The early crowd had come and gone, leaving behind rumpled newspapers and generous tips that Margaret tucked carefully into her apron pocket. She was wiping down the counter when she heard the roar of motorcycles pulling into the parking lot. Through the window, she watched a group of leather-clad bikers dismount their machines with the careful movements of people who'd been riding for hours. They filed in quietly, their boots heavy on the linoleum, and took up the large corner booth. Margaret counted 7 of them, their jackets worn and patched, their faces lined with road dust and stories. The one who seemed to be the leader, a broad-shouldered man with a salt and pepper beard, caught her eye and nodded respectfully. "Morning, gentlemen," Margaret said warmly, approaching with menus in her ever-present coffee pot. "You look like you've been traveling." "Yes, ma'am," the bearded man replied, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Coming back from a veterans memorial right up north. Been on the road since yesterday." "Well, you're in the right place for a good hot breakfast," Margaret said, beginning to pour coffee without being asked. "You just take your time deciding what sounds good." As she worked her way around the table, filling cups and making small talk, another vehicle pulled into the lot. This one was different, a sleek sports car that gleamed even in the soft morning light, expensive and ostentatious. A young man emerged, probably 17 or 18, wearing designer clothes and an expression of casual disdain that seemed permanently etched on his face. He entered the diner talking loudly on his phone, not bothering to lower his voice as he slid into a booth near the bikers. "Yeah, Dad's making me do community service or whatever. Some judge said I had to, after that thing with the principal's car. It's such garbage. I have to spend my whole Saturday at some stupid food bank." Margaret approached with her notepad and her patient smile. "Good morning. Can I get you some coffee while you look at the menu?" The young man barely glanced at her, waving his hand dismissively while still focused on his phone. "Just bring me whatever's expensive. And make it fast. I have places to be." "All right, sweetheart," Margaret said evenly. "I'll get that right out for you." She'd served enough people over the years to recognize arrogance when she saw it. But Margaret had learned long ago that everyone was fighting battles you couldn't see, and that kindness cost nothing. She put in his order and went back to checking on her other customers, including the bikers, who were quietly discussing their ride and their lost brothers they'd been honoring. When Margaret brought out the young man's food, the steak and eggs, which happened to be the priciest item on the menu, she set it down carefully in front of him. "Here you are. Can I get you anything else?" He looked at the plate and sneered. "This is supposed to be expensive. This dump probably charges $5 for this garbage." "It's actually $15.95, Margaret said mildly. "But if there's something wrong with it, I'm happy to have the cook make you something else." "Whatever," he muttered, picking up his fork and stabbing at the eggs without looking up from his phone. Margaret turned to walk away, but before she'd taken 2 steps, she heard him make a disgusted sound. "Hey, old woman." She turned back, and what happened next unfolded in slow motion. The young man stood up from his booth, his face twisted with contempt, and deliberately spat directly on Margaret's pristine white uniform. The dark stain spread across her chest as she stood frozen, her hand instinctively going to the spot, her face flushing with humiliation. "That's what I think of your service," he said with a smirk. The diner went completely silent. Even the sizzle from the kitchen seemed to pause. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but she held them back with the dignity of someone who'd weathered harder storms than this. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Then came the sound of movement, the heavy scrape of boots on linoleum. The 7 bikers rose as one from their corner booth, a wall of leather and resolve. The bearded leader stepped forward first, moving between the young man and Margaret with deliberate purpose. The others formed a semicircle, their expressions grave. "Son," the leader said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through years of living, "I think you need to apologize to the lady." The young man's bravado faltered, but only for a moment. "Or what? You're going to threaten me? I'll have my father sue this whole place. Do you know who he is?" "I don't care if your father is the president," said another biker, this one with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. "You just disrespected a woman who's probably worked harder in one day than you have in your whole life." The leader held up a hand, keeping his crew calm. He turned to Margaret, whose tears had finally spilled over. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Margaret nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I'm fine. It's okay. Please, I don't want any trouble." "There won't be trouble," the leader assured her. Then he turned back to the young man. "Here's how this is going to work. You're going to apologize to this lady. A real apology. Then you're going to pay for everyone's meal in this diner. Then you're going to sit back down and think about what kind of man you want to be." "I'm not doing any of that," the young man said, but his voice had lost its edge. He was looking at the exits, calculating. "Yes, you are," said a voice from behind him. He turned to find the diner's owner, a barrel-chested man named Frank who'd been watching from the kitchen pass through. "Because if you don't, I'm calling the police, and you'll be explaining to your father, and that judge who gave you community service, why you assaulted one of my employees." The young man's face went pale. "That wasn't assault. Spitting on someone is assault, son," said the bearded biker. "We all saw it. 7 witnesses right here, plus the owner, plus those cameras up in the corners." The fight went out of him all at once. He looked around at the faces watching him, and perhaps for the first time in his privileged life, he realized he wasn't going to buy or bully his way out of consequences. He started, then stopped. He looked at Margaret, who stood quietly with her hands folded, her eyes still wet but her spine straight. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "Louder," the leader said. "And like you mean it." The young man took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I shouldn't have done that. It was wrong." Margaret studied his face for a long moment. Then, in a voice that carried more strength than anyone expected, she said, "I accept your apology. And I hope you learn from this. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Don't waste it being cruel." The tension in the room eased slightly. The young man pulled out his wallet with trembling hands and gave Frank his credit card. While the owner rang up the meals, the bikers slowly returned to their booth, though they kept watchful eyes on the situation. The leader lingered beside Margaret. "You handled that with more grace than most would have, ma'am." "What else was I going to do?" Margaret said softly. "That boy's hurting inside. Anyone who acts like that is hurting." The biker smiled, a gentle expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "That's wisdom right there. My mother used to say something similar." After everything was settled and the young man had left, subdued and thoughtful, Margaret tried to refuse when the bikers insisted on leaving her a $200 tip. But they wouldn't hear otherwise. "You showed us something today," the leader told her. "Reminded us what real strength looks like." As Margaret drove home that evening, her uniform still stained but her heart surprisingly light, she thought about the strange turns a day could take. She'd been humiliated and defended, had seen cruelty and kindness in equal measure. But mostly, she hoped that young man would remember this day whenever he was tempted to treat someone else as less than human. Because that's what kindness was, really. It was remembering that everyone, the waitress, the biker, the troubled rich kid, was fighting battles you couldn't see. And sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was simply meet cruelty with dignity and give grace when it wasn't deserved. That night, when Margaret's daughter called to check in, Margaret told her the whole story. "You should have just let them scare him," her daughter said indignantly. But Margaret shook her head, even though her daughter couldn't see. Fear doesn't teach people anything except how to hide who they really are. But kindness has a way of seeping into the cracks in a person's armor. I have to believe that boy went home different than he came in. And perhaps he did. Perhaps that day in the diner became a turning point, a moment he'd remember when choosing who he wanted to become. Or perhaps not. Margaret knew she couldn't control that. She could only control her own choices, her own kindness, her own grace. And that, she'd learned over 37 years of serving coffee and comfort in equal measure, was enough. The bikers had become semi-regulars now, stopping in every few weeks on their way to or from various rides. They always took the same corner booth, always left generous tips, and always treated Margaret with a respect that warmed her more than any heater could. The bearded leader, whose name she'd learned was Robert, had lost his wife 2 years prior and said Margaret reminded him of her kindness. "You've got the same way about you," he'd told her once. "Like you see people for who they could be, not just who they are." Margaret had simply smiled and refilled his coffee, but the words had stayed with her. It was a Tuesday morning in late February when the door chimed and Margaret looked up from wiping down table 3 to see someone unexpected. The young man from that Saturday in November stood in the doorway, snowflakes melting on his shoulders. He looked different, thinner, perhaps, and there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something humble. He spotted Margaret and seemed to freeze, his hand still on the door handle. For a moment, she thought he might turn and leave. But then he straightened his shoulders and walked directly to where she stood. "Ma'am," he said quietly. "I don't know if you remember me." "I remember," Margaret said gently, studying his face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something more genuine. "Would you like to sit down?" He nodded gratefully and slid into the nearest booth. Margaret poured him a coffee without asking and set it down in front of him. His hands wrapped around the mug like it was an anchor. "I've been wanting to come back for months," he began, his voice unsteady. "But I was ashamed. I kept driving by, but I couldn't make myself come in." Margaret sat down across from him, something she rarely did during her shift. But Frank caught her eye from behind the counter and nodded. This was important. "What changed today?" she asked. The young man, his name was Tyler, she remembered from the credit card receipt that day, took a shaky breath. "My community service ended last week. I spent 3 months working at that food bank. At first, I hated it. Thought it was beneath me." He laughed bitterly. "God, I was such an entitled jerk." "Was?" Margaret asked with the hint of a smile. "Am trying not to be," he corrected. "There was this family that came in every week. Mother with 3 kids. The youngest was maybe 5, and she had this smile that just lit up the whole room, you know. Even though they were struggling. Even though they were hungry." He paused, his eyes distant. "One day I asked the mom how she stayed so positive. And she said something that hit me like a truck." Margaret waited, letting him find his words. She said, "We might not have much, but we have each other, and we have people kind enough to help us. That's more than some people ever get." And I realized, I had everything. Money, opportunity, a future handed to me on a silver platter. And I was the most miserable person I knew. He looked up at Margaret, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I've been thinking about that day here. About what I did to you. About how you could have pressed charges, could have made my life hell. But you didn't. And those bikers, they could have hurt me. But they didn't either. They just made me look at myself." "And what did you see?" Margaret asked softly. "Someone I didn't want to be anymore." Tyler wiped at his eyes. "I went home that day and really looked at my life. My dad, he's successful, but he's not happy. He's not kind. I was becoming him, and I didn't even realize it. The thing with the principal's car, I'd keyed it because he gave me detention for cheating. Can you imagine? I cheated, got caught, and thought I was the victim." Margaret reached across the table and patted his hand. "But you're here now. That says something. I wanted you to know that you changed my life that day," Tyler said. "When you accepted my apology, even after what I did. I didn't deserve that grace. But you gave it anyway. And it's been eating at me ever since, in the best way possible. Like a seed growing." "A seed?" Margaret prompted. "Yeah. At first, I apologized because I was scared of consequences. But then I kept thinking about it. About you. About how you could afford to be kind even when someone was cruel to you. That takes real strength. And I want to learn how to do that." The door chimed again, and Margaret glanced up to see Robert and 2 of his biker friends walking in, shaking snow from their jackets. They spotted Margaret and started toward their usual booth, then noticed Tyler and stopped. Robert's expression shifted, recognition dawning. "Well," he said carefully. "Didn't expect to see you again, kid." Tyler stood up, visibly nervous but holding his ground. "Sir, I owe you an apology too. All of you. You were right to call me out that day. I needed it." The bikers exchanged glances. Robert studied Tyler for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Took guts to come back here. That says something. Would you gentlemen like to join us? Margaret asked, her eyes twinkling. I think we're having an important conversation here. Robert smiled and slid into the booth beside Tyler, while his friends took seats around the table. Margaret refreshed everyone's coffee and settled back in. So what are you doing with yourself now, kid? Robert asked, still giving old ladies grief. Tyler had the grace to look embarrassed. No, sir. I talked to my school counselor and changed my schedule. I'm taking this social work class now, learning about community services and nonprofit organizations. And I'm volunteering at the food bank still, even though my hours are done. I want to study social work in college. Maybe help kids who are heading down the same path I was. One of the other bikers, a man named James with more gray than black in his beard, leaned forward. That's a hard road, son. You see a lot of pain in that work. A lot of people who've been dealt bad hands.